Removing and replacing parts. HP 202G1 Microtower PC.
Tools you need. To remove and replace parts in this device, you should ideally have the following tools on hand: an anti-static wrist strap, a Phillips screwdriver, a flat-bladed pry tool, long-nose pliers, a flathead screwdriver, a Torx screwdriver, a triangular pry tool, a pair of tweezers, thermal grease and cleaning alcohol, a suction cup, a cuticle stick, a SIM tray eject pin.
How to replace the access panel. Removal.
To access components that are inside the PC, you will need to remove the access panel. To remove the access panel, first loosen the thumb screw that connects the panel to the PC. Grasp the handle on the panel and pull towards the back of the PC. The panel will come free.
Replacement.
The access panel has several tabs on its top, bottom, and leading edges, which fit into slots and over the front lip of the PC. To reattach the panel, align the tabs on the panel over the corresponding slots on the PC and lay the panel into place. Then slide the panel forward to lock it into position. Tighten the thumb screw to secure the panel to the PC.
How to replace the system memory.
To replace system memory, first remove the access panel.
Removal.
Simultaneously push down on the clips on either side of the DDR3 DIMM socket to release the memory module. Carefully pull out the memory module. There is one notch on the bottom of every DDR3 DIMM module, offset from the center, that fits over a tab in the DDR3 DIMM memory socket.
Replacement.
When installing DDR3 DIMMs, align the notch on the module with the tab in the socket. Press the module into the socket until the clips on both sides of the socket lock into place.
How to replace the hard drive.
To remove the hard drive, first remove the access panel.
Removal.
Next, remove the power and data connectors from the top of the drive. Note that the power cable has a latch that must be pressed to remove the cable. Detach the 4 screws that secure the hard drive to the PC. Slide the drive out of its bay and pull it out of the unit.
Replacement.
To install the hard drive, slide the drive into the cage until the screw holes on the bottom of the hard drive and the holes marked A on the drive cage align. Make sure the connectors are at the top of the cage. Replace the 4 screws. Replace the power and data connectors to the top of the drive.
How to replace the front bezel.
To remove the front bezel, first remove the access panel.
Removal.
Unlatch the 3 side tabs of the front bezel and rotate the bezel away from the PC.
Replacement.
The front bezel has 3 tabs on each side. Which fit into 6 slots on the PC. To replace the front bezel, align the tabs on the left side of the bezel into the slots on the PC. Then rotate the bezel into position. Snap it firmly into place.
How to replace the optical drive.
To remove the optical drive, first remove the access panel and the front bezel.
Removal.
Detach the 2 Torx head system screws from the side of the drive bay. Partially slide the drive out of the front of the unit. Detach the power and data connectors from the back of the drive. Note that the connectors each have a latch that must be pressed to remove the connector. Fully remove the optical drive from the PC.
Replacement.
To install an optical drive, push the drive in slightly. Reattach the power and data connectors to the rear of the drive. Continue sliding the optical drive into the unit until the screw holes on the side of the drive align with the holes on the side of the drive bay. Replace the 2 Torx head screws to secure the optical drive in the drive bay.
How to replace the system speaker.
To remove the system speaker, first remove the access panel and the front bezel.
Removal.
Detach the speaker connector from the motherboard. Free the connector from the cable guide on the side wall of the PC. There are 3 rubber posts that secure the speaker to the front frame of the PC. Squeeze the base of the posts and push the posts into the unit to release the posts. Then pull the speaker out from inside the unit.
Replacement.
The 3 rubber posts on the system speaker fit into 3 holes on the front frame of the PC. To replace the system speaker, align the posts into their holes from the inside of the unit. Carefully pull the posts out of the front of the unit until the base of each post snaps into place on the front of the unit. Replace the speaker connector into its cable guide on the side wall of the PC. And replace the speaker connector to the motherboard.
How to replace the front I/O panel.
To remove the front I/O panel, first remove the access panel and the front bezel.
Removal.
Then detach the front I/O connectors from the motherboard. Disengage the connectors from the cable guide on the side wall of the PC. Push in on the front I/O retaining tab and slide the panel firmly to the right. Pull the front I/O panel and its connectors out of the unit.
Replacement.
The front I/O panel has 4 hooks. that fit into 4 slots on the front of the PC. To reinstall the front I/O panel, first feed the connector cables back into the unit. Align the hooks on the panel into the slots and slide the panel to the left until the retaining tab snaps into place. Secure the connectors into the cable guide on the side wall of the PC. Reattach the connectors from the front I/O panel to the motherboard.
How to replace the power switch.
To remove the power switch, first remove the access panel, the front bezel, and the optical drive.
Removal.
Detach the power switch connector to the motherboard. Disengage the connector from any cable guides on the side wall of the PC. Squeeze the left side of the power switch to disengage it from the PC, and pull the switch and its connector out of the front of the unit.
Replacement.
The power switch has tabs on each side that fit over a slot and a lip on the front of the PC. To replace the power switch, first feed the connector in through the front of the PC. Align the right side tab of the switch into its slot and then press the left tab into place. Replace the connector into the cable guide on the side wall of the PC. Reattach the connector to the motherboard.
How to replace the power supply.
To remove the power supply, first remove the access panel and the front bezel.
Removal.
Push the optical drive partially forward. Then detach all power connectors to the motherboard and system drives. Next, detach the 4 screws that connect the power supply to the PC. Press the latch at the bottom of the power supply and pull the power supply into and then out of the PC.
Replacement.
Always replace the entire power supply. Never attempt to work within the power supply unit. There is a latch, a guide, and a ledge on the PC that helps secure the power supply in the PC. To replace the power supply, align it towards the guide and the ledge, then slide it back until the latch locks into place. Reattach the 4 screws at the rear of the chassis. Remember to reconnect all power connectors to system components and to the motherboard. Slide the optical drive back into position.
How to replace the heat sink.
To remove the heatsink, first remove the access panel.
Removal.
Detach the heatsink connector to the motherboard. Loosen the 4 captured screws for the heatsink. And pull the heatsink out of the PC.
Replacement.
Before replacing the heatsink, first clean off the old thermal grease from the microprocessor and from the heatsink. Apply new thermal grease or a thermal pad to the microprocessor. Align the 4 screws of the heatsink over the 4 screw holes on the motherboard and tighten the heatsink screws. Replace the heatsink connector to the motherboard.
How to replace the CPU.
To remove the CPU, first remove the access panel and the heatsink.
Removal.
Press down to release the CPU load lever from its retention tab and pull it back. Lift the load plate off the socket and then remove the microprocessor from the motherboard.
Replacement.
To replace the CPU, first identify pin 1 position on the microprocessor by noting the yellow mark on the corner of the chip assembly. Identify pin 1 on the socket by the mark on the corner of the socket stencil. Align the assembly to pin 1 on the motherboard when replacing the CPU into its socket. Swing the load plate down. Lock the load lever under its retaining tab to secure the microprocessor in place.
How to restore CMOS to factory settings.
CMOS factory settings should be restored as a first step before replacing the system motherboard. To restore CMOS factory settings, first remove the access panel. Remove the battery from the motherboard. Wait 30 seconds. Replace the battery to the motherboard. CMOS factory settings are now reset. Note that you will now need to enter System BIOS and reset the clock in BIOS after this procedure.
How to replace the motherboard.
To remove the motherboard, first remove the access panel. Remove system memory, the heatsink, and the CPU. Install a socket cover on the load plate window before removing the CPU. And replacing the load plate over the socket.
Removal.
Detach all connectors to the motherboard. Remove the 6 Torx head screws that attach the motherboard to the chassis. Pull the motherboard carefully out of the unit. Place the motherboard in an anti-static bag.
Replacement.
To replace the motherboard, carefully place the motherboard back into the unit, clearing connectors away from underneath the board, and aligning the back panel connectors with their cutouts on the rear of the chassis. Reattach the 6 Torx head system screws to secure the motherboard in the unit. Replace all connectors to the board.
Find more helpful videos on our HP Support YouTube channel.